I see Miranda van Dam is watching, and she says, love Jay Evans, so you must just stay tuned, Miranda. This is going to be a cracker. All right, so what have you been up to this week, Bree?
We've been busy, again, with a lot of training, but obviously I feel a little bit sad because the MotoGP season's come to an end.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on top of that, obviously, we all know that Rossi's retired. That was quite emotional for me, I've got to say.
So it was overshadowed. 3 Ducatis on the podium, and the only story was Rossi finishing up his career.
And Daniel Petrucci as well, obviously, Daniel Petrucci. Yeah, he also retired. Yeah. Obviously, it was very cool of Rossi to go over to him and hug him.
For sure.
Because otherwise he would have been a little bit in the shadows there.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
before that, though...
Do you want to talk about this?
What happened there?
This is not a tattoo, by the way. It's not one of those cool tattoos. I wish it was.
So what happened?
This was a life lesson, Peter.
Okay, what happened on the life lesson?
So I had a little bit of an oopsie with my bike. And,
okay, but hang on a second.
No. We can't go into lots of details. We can't go into lots of details. I just had a little oopsie with my bike.
But
I didn't have my jacket on, so lesson learned.
Can I ask you a question? How long have you had the bike before that oopsie?
Long time. Let's not talk about that. All right, so that's it for a little bit of banter. Can we start the show now?
We can, of course.
Because I don't know. All right, guys, let's get into this week's news. All right, Pete, interesting story. The Volvo the XC60, the model year 2022 is coming to South Africa. You've got a little bit of insight with Volvo. What are we looking forward to?
Yeah, so obviously Volvo is an organisation that's close to my heart. There's not many changes with the XC60 per se. A lot of it is under the skin, but I think the important thing to highlight really with the XC60 is there's going to be a fundamental change in the infotainment system.
Okay.
And so obviously with Volvo being orientated around safety, the infotainment system itself is going to be upgraded, and there's going to be a lot more ability.
It looks amazing. It looks flippin' classy, and that's not a Volvo. That's not a Volvo. That's the next story, Fritz. Yes, there's the Volvo. There's the Volvo. Okay, it looks amazing. It's a flippin'. We've reviewed a couple of Volvos, and they never disappoint.
They never disappoint. Interesting story on the XC60 in particular is that the XC60 has an incredible reputation from a resale point of view.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of the Volvos now are shooting the lights out when it comes to that.
Which has always been a little bit of a story.
And it's unfair at the moment because they really are doing well. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so somebody that's been in the news quite a bit lately, and there's a big build-up with regards to Chery.
Can you believe it?
I cannot believe it. Really.
Now listen, what we had before.
This is the Chery. Thanks,
There's the Chery. Look at that. What a stunning vehicle. So it's obviously being relaunched. Previously, Chery had a very interesting distributorship in South Africa because it was shared between the then Imperial and McCarthy's, which was an interesting marriage. Now, obviously, Chery as the company has come back to South Africa, and they've come back with a bang.
Yeah.
And we've met a couple of the guys from Chery.
Yes.
And I've got to tell you, very seasoned individuals that have been appointed at Chery.
Yeah.
So I've got very, very high hopes for the brand in South Africa. And they're initially launching with 30 dealers, but I can tell you that's going to grow substantially over the next year.
The write-ups and the reviews with the launch with the Tigo, which was the car that you guys saw there, that model is amazing. It looks like it could be a successful story.
We've spoken to some of the dealers, and they are absolutely raving about it. So it's good news. And
yeah, we've got a map here of the dealerships. This is the 30 that they're going to start off with.
Yep. So immediately you can see a substantial dealer network, and like I said, that's probably going to double within the next year.
All right. Okay, so the last story for tonight is we have to talk about Formula One in the news tonight. Okay, because you and I are both big Verstappen fans.
Yep.
What a race this last weekend with Hamilton cruising on by. What did they do with that car that it was so quick?
Look, I've got to say that I think that the track is in Formula One terms, a bit of a go-kart track these days. Eh?
Yeah.
So I think the drag reduction system is way too powerful for the track. And so for me, it wasn't about talent. With respect, it was about just slipstreaming and overtaking. And who had the least downfalls?
Listen, let's be honest. This whole weekend was very, very interesting for Lewis Hamilton. Obviously, with the penalties and being disqualified in qualifying for the sprint race.
Yeah.
Yes, he made up a hell of a lot of spots and did a hell of a lot of racing. And yes, even if the car is quicker, you must still drive it.
I was going to say hats off to him. With all due respect, I mean, he started last in the sprint race, got to 5th place, and then won the race. I mean, listen, that still takes talent.
Exactly, but the car there's. I'm telling you now, there's something not right.
Yeah, well, okay.
All right, that brings us to the end of the news. All right, guys, please remember that this is a live and interactive show. So you guys at home, if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, wherever you're watching, especially for the next segment, which is our guest, Joey Evans, if you have any comments, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the comments below. Wherever you're watching, Facebook or YouTube, and we'll get to them, and we can even ask Joey and maybe he can answer. Okay, so we're ready. Are we ready for this?
Let's do it.
This is Guest of the Week. All right, guys, Joey Evans in studio with us. What an absolute privilege to have this hero with us. Legend.
It's not all that, but thanks for having me.
No, really it is, Joey. Like when you drove into the studio just now, I said, there's not a lot of guys that can drive around with that Dakar sticker on the back of their Ford Ranger. Eh?
There you go. I actually had a guy ask you about that once. He's like, oh, you want to be a Toyota? Let's keep quiet.
Wow.
Oh, wow. That was a... Listen, Joey, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with a little bit about yourself. Because, a lot of people that will watch the show, even, after the live broadcast is done, they want to know who you are. Maybe they don't know. So why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Oh, geez. Well, I'm a dad. I've got 4 daughters.
And a big shotgun.
And yep, that's it. You know it. And yeah, I've been married for 20-something years. You're putting me on the spot now. 1998. So what is that, like 23 and a bit years?
Yep.
Yeah, I live out on the West Rand of Joburg. Grew up in Kempton Park on the East Rand. I loved BMXs and bicycles kind of growing up, and it took me till I was 26 to get my first motorcycle.
Sure.
And yeah, after that I got into motocross, then I got into freestyle, then I got into off-road and enduro. And obviously went on to enjoy rally bikes and race the Dakar Rally.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. Yeah, I love the fact that you say it took you to the age of 26 to get into bikes.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people put too much pressure on themselves to start very young. And if you don't start young, you're never going to do anything spectacular.
Man, I honestly, I've got a big issue with that because I often speak to my daughters about it as well, because you know what it's like when you're in school. Mm-hmm. If you didn't start playing soccer or rugby, for instance, when you were in grade 2 or grade 3, if you decide when you're in high school, hey man, I'd like to play rugby, it's like, hey, that ship sailed, bud.
Yeah.
But it hasn't. You can still play if you want. Yeah, you're not going to be the top oak straight away, but we all know within 2 years you can catch up, man, if you put your mind to it. So yeah.
I cannot remember the name of the guy, but you might know. There was a Korean golfer who picked up golf when he was in the army.
So we don't watch golf.
Yeah, but fair play. Listen, he was a pro golfer. So he picked up golf in the army at the age of 19. That was the first time he picked up sticks, and he won a major.
Very late.
No way.
Yeah,
KJ Choi, wasn't it? I think it was.
So I mean,
anyway,
absolutely.
So Jay, then you started racing, and well, you did a lot of racing.
Yeah.
And then the unthinkable happened.
Yeah.
And I think this is important, and there's so much that you can tell and share with us, but I think it's important that on your first visit today, there'll be second and third.
Oh, that'll be cool. Thank you.
On the first visit, why don't you tell us about what happened? Because tragedy struck, and you had a huge accident.
100%, yeah. So, yeah, it was the 13th of October, 2007. and I was racing in Heidelberg Saturday morning, much like any other. I'm this guy who's, I'm loving off-road racing. I've raced the roof of Africa by now. Sure. I've done the desert race. I'm like, and I'm racing a championship, regional championship. I'm lying second in the championship. I know if I win this race, I can win this championship, second last race of the season. Wow. Saturday morning, you know what it's like? You're with your buddies, you're on the start line, just another day racing. And like a lot of guys will be racing, regionals or GXCCs or this type of stuff. I'm on the start line, normal day. And that's the last thing I remember. And the next thing I remember is waking up, facing the sky. There's people looking down at me. My mouth feels like it's full of dirt and stones. I spit out the dirt and stones, but it turns out to be my teeth. I shattered 12 of my teeth. Sure. And all full of blood. And then the next thing I realize is I can't feel my legs or move my legs, nothing from my chest down. And obviously then that started what was something that completely changed my life, 180 degrees, to find out that I'd had a spinal cord injury. I'd broken my back at T8 and T9, crushed my spinal cord, and I'm paralyzed. And yeah, that was a pretty horrid day.
Yes. I mean, that day got worse because obviously when you got to hospital, you were then told, Joe, you're never going to walk again.
Yeah, that's it. Over the next 48 hours, I was transferred to 3 different hospitals. Landed up just up the road here at the Mealmed unit here in Pretoria, at the spinal unit there. And that's when they said, look, you got a spinal cord injury. You're paralyzed from the chest down, and it's complete, and so we don't expect you to ever regain any feeling or movement. And at first I was like, no, it can't be forever, you know what I mean? There's got to be something. But then the next day, still nothing. The next day, nothing. Next day, nothing. Next day, nothing. And then my legs are going skinnier. With an injury like this, you lose all bowel control, you lose all bladder control, you lose your ability to digest food. And suddenly this reality of what my life's going to be like the rest of my life in a wheelchair with all these complications was, man, it was tough, and that was it. We thought it was a done deal at the time.
Jay, sure. I mean, I cannot imagine how tough mentally you need to be to get through something like that. Because, we've gone through minor stuff, Yeah. And it's like sometimes you feel like it's so overwhelming. And there you were, now you're paralyzed. So, I mean, you said earlier, your day job isn't to race. It was a hobby. So you had a day job that
I had my own little business that I was running myself. So I was suddenly paralyzed, pretty much unemployed, and I've got 4 daughters, all under the age of 8. Yes. And so it was a situation where it was like, it was horrendous, And it's not only horrendous for me as the injured guy. You can imagine what it was like for my wife. You can imagine what it's like for my daughters. For my brothers, my siblings, my parents. Like it just affects so many people. And yeah, it was tough, man. It was super tough. But my wife Meredith, she's pretty incredible, and she kind of helped to hold us all together. And you got to kind of make a decision, because I can tell you now, when you're lying there, you look at the rest of your life like this, you go like, I can't do this, man. I want to check out. I can't do this. But I made a decision based on Meredith and my daughters that I was gonna live, man, no matter what. And along with that, I thought about this goal I had pre that, to race the Dakar. Yeah. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna still chase my dreams. I don't care if it's in a wheelchair, and we're gonna one day race the Dakar Rally.
So at that stage, when you made that decision, it was that I'll race Dakar even if I'm still in a wheelchair.
100%. The whole thing was, it was a goal before I was paralyzed, and it was something I wanted to do, but it was impossible. I had small kids. I didn't have a lot of money. There was no ways I could do it, but I was like, one day I'm going to do it. And then when I found out I was paralyzed, all my dreams went, whether it was my business stuff, my plans with my family and my wife, the Dakar, to do other races, whatever, every single dream in your life just evaporates. Yeah. And I made a decision that I would not only live, but I would still chase every dream. I wasn't going to give up on those dreams. And the Dakar being one of them became my dream, or became my goal from a physical point of view. That I want to be physically capable of doing that. And I was quite fortunate that my injury turned out to be incomplete. Okay. And they fused my back to take some pressure off the spinal cord and things, and I started to get a little bit back.
But I mean, Jay, you lying in hospital, you've just been told you're paralyzed, that the likelihood of you walking again is not good. In fact, it's not going to happen. And there you are going, okay, you made that decision, right, I'm still going to do Dakar. That's incredible, first of all. But I mean, How long did it take you before you were now starting to get into a position where this thing could start actually happening?
Oh, 100%. It was one of those where, yeah, this is what I'm going to do, man. And I want to tell you that I was like super pumped every day, and I'm like, yeah, you know, like set on this goal and it's all that. But it wasn't like that. There were times that I was like, this is crazy. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to be able to be right again. I can't live like this. And it was miserable, and I'd lie in bed at night in the rehab center and freaking bawl my eyes out.
Yeah.
And it was like, it wasn't like I was like super motivated and positive all the time. It was like anyone's life where there was days where, you know what it's like, you get that day, you wake up and I'm like, yes, this man, I'm going to get fit, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to race, I'm going to like, and then the next day you're like, I'm going to eat chips and play video games today.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of that kind of, you know, there's another days you're like, I hate my life, this sucks, and you know, and so it was all the normal stuff like every other oak out there, ups and downs, but I kept kind of ticking away at this goal. You know, I kept ticking away, and it was 2.5 years after breaking my back was the first time I rode a motorbike again.
Wow. Before we get there,
yeah.
there's some footage here of you learning to walk again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay, cool.
So before we ride bike, we must first learn to walk
Exactly.
again. Yes, what a crazy story. I think Fritz will show us some of that while we're carrying on. This is
Cool. What are you saying? Look at that.
Joey, this is incredible, man.
Yeah. No, this was tough times, man. But I just wanted to say at this point that it was like, there is no ways I would have been able to learn to walk again. There was no ways we would have been able to get through this as a family if we didn't have support.
Yeah.
And we had so much support from friends, from family, from guys in the biking community.
Sure.
They rallied around my family. They brought meals to my home. They brought my wife to the hospital each day. The amount of support we had was just incredible. And that's a really big part of it. That it wasn't me as an individual. It was my wife Meredith, and it was a lot of like people around us.
I mean, you know, watching that video there, first of all, it's almost two stories, because on the one hand, you look at that and you almost go, oh, I mean, can you imagine being in that situation? But then you look at it again and you've got this beaming smile at the end of that. What was going through your mind at that point?
I don't know, man. I can't remember. But we would, you know, I'm a pretty positive guy, you know, and so most of the time I'm pretty positive. I'm pretty like optimistic about things. I don't believe in, I don't believe I'm always happy and stuff. I mean, I have my downers, you know, and all that stuff. But on the whole, I'm pretty positive. And it was quite as sad as that is when you watch that, you know. You look at it and you go like, that's terrible. But you must remember, I'm in a rehab center here. I'm surrounded by guys with similar injuries, head injuries, spinal injuries, all this sort of stuff. And suddenly I'm learning to walk again.
Yeah.
And I'm next to a guy who's got a broken neck who isn't walking again, and he's still complete. I'm next to another guy who doesn't even know where he is because he's got a brain injury. And so it's one of those when I compare myself to how I was before my injury, this is miserable. When I compare myself to how I was fully paralyzed, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's the perspective of like, what are you comparing yourself to? And when you look at it from that point of view, man, that is an awesome day. I'm learning to walk, man. You know, so it's perspective.
So now you're in that position there. Sorry.
No, there you go.
You're in that position. You've now started to see some serious lights at the end of the tunnel. And now the road to Dakar is going to become something that is more achievable and maybe something that you can do.
Even at that point, it's like, it didn't even feel achievable.
Really?
You're making progress, but you're like, you know, like if you look at me there, you push me, I'm falling over. I can't hold a bike up. I can't do anything. But life is starting to kind of like leak back in. You're kind of like, well, maybe, like you say, maybe, what about, maybe possible, this, that, you know what I mean? And you start to kind of like allow yourself to dream. But you know what it's like when you're like, can I allow myself to dream a bit? And it was like that. And then, but it was like little bit. And at any point, it's like, boom, that's as far as it gets. There's no guarantee you're going to be right. I mean, even now, I'll tell you where I'm at now. So you can, here we are now, 14 years later. I still can't run. I can't jump. I can't feel hot or cold sensation below my chest. I can't sweat below my chest. So it's hard to regulate my body temperature. My feet are permanently pins and needles. I still have to take medication every day to digest food, and to be perfectly frank, I still have to use catheters every day. And so it's like, I'm not, I'm not 100, I'm not hundreds, but it's like every little bit you're suddenly super grateful for, man. You know what I mean? The fact that I can walk, freaking awesome. The fact I can ride a bike, next level, you know. So yeah,
it puts perspective on things. I mean, and it really is, without being cliched, really inspirational. You do in particular follow Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
And then he talks. I don't know if you know Gary Vaynerchuk, but he talks.
He's that guy. He had was it no limbs or something?
No. This guy. Is a no.
Okay,
This like a motivational type.
Okay. They had that other guy. It's also similar to that.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. But this guy's still got his limbs.
So this guy's a billionaire.
Okay.
But came from hard background, was an immigrant into New York. But his whole theme is stop complaining.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now. Okay, gotcha. I'm with you. Yeah.
So okay, now after all of this, you decide to get back on a bike. I mean, seriously, I know because we both ride bikes. So I'm into adventure biking and off-roading, and he's onto track and whatever the case is. So we ride bike. We understand for the whims. So we understand the passion. Like for me, I would rather ride bike in the rain than be in a car, because that's just the way it is, you know. But to go through a drastic injury like that and then deciding to get back on a bike, that must have been crazy.
Man, I tell you what.
Can you remember the first time?
I do. Yeah, and I remember the first time very well. And the first time was a little bit crazy because it was a bit by accident that it happened, you know. We were pulling up to a picnic the one day with my family, and across the road in the Veld was my one buddy there with a bike. He was like teaching a mate of his to ride. It was an old KX or something. And I walked over to him, started chatting a bit, and he was like, "Hey, you want to give it a go?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, let's do this," you know, kind of thing. And I could tell he was like, "Where's your wife?" You know. But they helped me on, and as soon as I got on, I tried to kickstart the bike, and I just fell over with the bike still between my legs, you know. And they helped me get up again, and they started it for me. And then I rode like this kind of big semicircle around this Veld. But obviously I couldn't run or jump or that kind of stuff. And so to be able to twist the throttle and just move effortlessly was just amazing. Incredible, man. Yeah. And then on we went from there. But it was, the thing is, just quick going back to that one, is that with injuries, you know, bikes are dangerous, man. Bikes are dangerous. You can have serious injuries. Yeah, there
this
you go.
This is a small one.
There you go.
I've still got a plate in my shoulder.
You just got one plate.
Just one.
I'm just kidding. But it's they're dangerous, and it's like, I mean, exactly. And any group of bikers, there's all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of people on the outside, they see these injuries, and that's what they see, and they're like, "Why do you guys ride bikes? It's crazy." But you know the guys you've met riding bikes.
Yes.
You know the places you've been riding bikes.
Yeah.
You know those feelings. You know how it's made your life incredible with experiences and places and people and that kind of stuff. And so this injury thing is like, yeah, it sucks. No one wants to be injured, man. There's no bragging rights in injuries and stuff, but it's terrible. But it is a small price to pay for opening your life in such an incredible way. You know, you've got to have risk.
Yeah,
you know?
That's it. Risk and reward.
Okay, I know that there's so much to talk about, Joe. I think we can have a 2-hour special, okay? but we have to go on. So I want to fast forward now to the actual Dakar.
Okay.
So 2007 was the accident. 10 years later, 2017, you are actually at Dakar.
Yeah.
And I remember that.
Yeah.
By the way, that's why I say we've been dying to meet you, because that we followed for sure.
So here's the start of that race in 2017.
Yep.
So talk us through Dakar 2017 and this experience.
Oh man, can I tell you, it was obviously like a really long story to explain it all to how we got there 10 years later. But the bottom line is, we're on the start line. That's that photo you saw previously. It was the 2nd of January 2017. We're in Asunción, Paraguay, and the crowds, there is tons of crowds there. And I rode down off that start ramp, and it's kind of like then you ride through all the crowds. And I always said pre-Dakar, I said, you know what, man, I'm going to play everything safe. I'm not going to take any chances because this is Dakar, man. Don't stuff around.
So the goal was just
one
to finish.
goal, and that's to finish. Yeah. And I started riding through those crowds. And I was like, stuff it, man. And I freaking wheelied. And I wheelied right down through those crowds. And I was like, it was crazy.
And that
was another day. Oh, there you go. Oh, there was lots of those. That's just one they caught on camera.
So much for being safe, Joey.
And I was trying to be safe then. I think I was just broken physically. But yeah, after that first day, it was just Oh man, and then we got on the race, and then I started racing, and got through day 1, got through day 2 and day 3, and I mean the race was 13 days long, and I promise you, after about 3 days, I was destroyed. Physically, mentally, emotionally, all this kind of stuff. But along with that, you have that feeling, especially for someone like me, that I do not belong here. I am out of my league. You're surrounded by pros, you're surrounded by sponsored riders. All these guys, so many of the guys at Dakar are like ex-national motocross champions, ex-national hare scramble champions, ex-national rally champions. All these, like, you're surrounded by like big names, and all these guys are freaking pros, man. And here I am, this little hacker, half paralyzed oak who grew up in Kenton, and I'm like, I'm out of my league, I don't belong here. Man, this is crazy. And you have that feeling of like, I need to just go home, I'm going to die here. Because you have a couple close calls with trucks coming over dunes, and you've seen a quad oak who passed out in the mountains, and he went down the side of the mountain being medevaced out in a chopper. I saw guys with broken bones. I came across a rider who had a head-on with a car, and his bones were through his leg, like out the skin. And I stopped with that oak and stuff. It was on my GoPro. It was on one of the. It was actually on TV, that one. And you see these horrendous injuries every day, and you're like, this is mental, man. I'm a dad. I've got kids. I'm married. I'm like, I'm not good enough to be here. And honestly, you just wanted to quit, man. I was like, this is crazy. I don't belong here.
So everything went okay throughout Dakar until...
Well, okay is a very relative term. Let's say I'm still in the race.
You're still going forward.
That's it, We start very slowly, but going forward, And so I'm still in the race all the way to day 12 of 13. And on day 12, I started stone last, because you start on the order, you finish the night before. And the day, previous day I had some problems. Day 12, I'm stone last, man. And I've just got to get through this day, man. I'm destroyed. And we got into a section mid-morning where it was like 2 parallel tracks that were pretty deep. They were like 2 parallel ruts filled with fish, that fine powder. And I'm in the left-hand rut, and I'm riding along, and suddenly my alarm goes off on the bike, just dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. And what that is, it means there's a car behind you, and they press this button to pass you. But they normally do it when they're like 200, 300 meters away. I turn around, the guy's 20 meters behind me, doing double my speed. I try to swerve out the way, but right where I am, I'm in this thick rut. I turn the bars over, the bike can't climb out. I've committed my weight. I basically dive off this bike, and this car just hits my bike and completely goes right over my motorcycle.
And this is it now. You're done for the race.
Destroyed. That bike was
We've got a picture. There's the
destroyed.
bike. There's the bike after the car went over.
Yeah, if you leave that pick up a little bit there, you can see that he went right over the bike. If you look at the exhaust, it's completely flattened. It's bent into the back wheel. All the wiring at the back was obviously all torn up and exposed.
I mean, an insurance company would write that off.
Oh, absolutely. Geez, dude, 100%. And I mean, there's 3 petrol tanks on the bike. The one at the back is all destroyed. The front right one is destroyed. You can see the cap's all completely broken off. All the fuel's run out of the 2 of them.
You can see the fuel there.
The only petrol tank that's still working is the one against the ground. The seat was torn up and ripped out of the mountings. The air filter's torn. The right foot peg is completely broken off and taken parts of the frame.
I can see 93 on one of those displays. What was that the speed?
No. Those displays will be one is a cap heading, and the other one is a odometer reading, basically. But if you look at those 2 displays at the front of the bike, those should be lining up with the front screen. Can you see that? So the entire tower was crushed and broken off, and all that. It was all gone. Everything stuffed. It was just like that thing was destroyed. So there was one ICO, is what we call those things, working, which you can see that top right one would have been the right one. But yeah, bike is destroyed. The frame was bent, the subframe was bent, like the thing's done.
Okay, so now 10 years later, you've made it to Dakar. You've got 1 day to go. Now the dream's over.
That's it.
You're sitting next to your bike. Did you get off unscathed?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm not injured on that crash, and also, I mean, I didn't even tell you, but I tore ligaments in my knee on day 5. So I mean, like, this is so it's like I've been dealing with lots here, and I dragged that bike out of the track, and I stood it up, and I couldn't believe it. And the guy stopped, and the what do you call it, the navigator stood up the car, and he's like, "Hey, you good?" And I'm like, "Freaking no."
I'm sure.
But they just went. And so I had to drag the bike out myself, stand it up. There's still cars and trucks coming past, covering me in dust and stuff. And I'm like looking at this bike, and I mean, I had 660 kilometers to still race that day.
What?
So it's like, and this is after 12 days after spending several days, more than 20 hours on the bike,
Yes.
I'm destroyed, you know, and but I decided, hey man, I'm gonna just see what I can do, and I try to fix it as best I could, and I got it working without an exhaust, without a foot peg, with no navigation and stuff, and I just started riding and zigzagging through this like semi-arid desert because I couldn't ride on the track anymore because now there's cars and trucks, and I'm running out of fuel. You know, I've just got that one tank. I could do maybe 20 Ks on the fuel I've got, and the next time I hit civilization is 65 kilometers away. I'm out the race. I'm in the race, but it's just a matter of time.
It's going to take a miracle to finish this.
No, I'm never going to finish. It's done. And then, in the middle of the desert, is a bike just standing there. A KTM.
The miracle.
450 rally replica just standing there in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
Without a rider?
Without a rider, just standing there. And what I'll tell you what happened, the guy had crashed, he'd broken both his arms, and he'd been medevaced out in the chopper. So when I come to the bike, you have tracking equipment, and when a rider's injured, they take the tracking equipment off the bike, they put it with the rider in the chopper.
They know where the guy
so if you care to find a bike where it has no tracking equipment on, you know the rider's been medevaced out.
Yes.
And so here's this bike, and the rider's been medevaced out.
And you're from Kempton. Let's just
Exactly
go back now.
that.
You're from Kempton.
Exactly that. and so I just stripped that bike. There was 3 Argentinian guys there on old dirt bikes just spectating in the middle of nowhere. And you know what bikers are like? They helped me out. And we stripped the exhaust off the bike, the whole side of the frame.
So do you carry all the tools that you need
I carried everything I needed with me, except...
a number 13 spanner.
Not even that. I had one of those. A number 17 spanner. Who the hell carries a 17 on them?
Yeah.
And what happened was I needed the foot peg. Now on the rally bike, it's like a 690 kind of vibe. So or it's similar to the 690. The foot peg is connected to a section that then gets screwed onto the frame, and the thing that holds it onto the frame is that big bolt that goes through the swing arm.
Okay.
So you got to take off the size 17. I don't have a 17, so I can't get a foot peg. And you know, riding off-road, 660 kilometers without a foot peg is near impossible. So I'm like, I've got to get this foot peg. One of those Argentinian oaks on his old Skadonk dirt bike had a shifting spanner, I kid you not, about this big, and he had it like cable tied to the front of his bike because obviously his bike was braking all the time, and he walks up with a shifting spanner. I couldn't believe it, and we got the foot peg. It took me, you know, at that point, by the time I got going again, I was 4 hours behind the guy who was second last.
Okay.
So I'm like right at the tail end of this field, no cars in control, a couple of cars and a truck left. And yeah, we got it on my bike, and then I still had to ride. I had still about 640 Ks by the time I found that bike. And then I rode all that day and all that night, and I eventually got to that second last bivouac at 2:15 in the morning, the following morning.
Sure.
And then the next day?
Yeah, well, I slept for 1 hour, and then I rode 850 Ks the next day on that same bike, and finished the Dakar.
That is...
like, I think we should swear. I think we can we swear?
I swore like
Jay, that is...
If that helmet could talk.
It's an absolutely insane story. I wanna. There's a couple of things that I need to do. I need to... There's the medal of you finishing that.
That's it. Yeah, that was right after the finish. You see the bloodshot eyes, but a big smile. My face is...
You don't look too bad, eh?
Burnt. My lips are split. No, it was tough, man. We were... At that point there, I was so broken because I'd just ridden like 1,500 kilometers, mostly off-road, obviously, and in the last 48 hours, and I'd slept 1 hour.
That is...
with half a foot peg.
On the back of 12 days... After, well, you could say after 11 days of Dakar.
Yeah.
So I was destroyed.
Wow. That's insane.
Completely destroyed.
I want to get to a couple of the comments that we got here.
Cool.
Brian Chain,
Okay.
that actually introduced us.
Cool.
He said that you're a legend, and he's actually says that he's got a pin, a plate, 11 screws, but he still rides.
Ah, what a boy.
Yeah, what a boy. Nadia says that's shocking. Oh, so did the guys get penalized that ran you off
I
your
also
bike?
wanted to ask that
Man,
great
do
question.
you know what, those guys, I was so mad, man. When I rode the rest of that day, I was seething, and I was thinking, I'm going to chop these oaks up, I'm going to bury them in the desert. I was so mad. I was like, when I get back to that bivouac, because they didn't even help me get my bike out the track.
Yeah.
They literally just
And aren't
left
they
me.
required to?
so much, you know, and eventually when I got out of that stage, because it was like that, the race that day was, we had a special, we had a liaison, another special.
Yeah.
And so when I finished that special, like 6, 7, 8 hours later, whatever, late afternoon, you know, or whenever it was, the marshals, they was like, what? He couldn't believe there's a biker, because now he hasn't seen any vehicle in a couple of hours. He hasn't seen bikers in probably 6 hours or 4 hours, whatever, and suddenly I come rolling in. And he said, oh, one guy mentioned there was a biker that got hit by a car. Yeah. And so suddenly they were so shocked. But I have to report it in the bivouac that night.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I got in at 2:15. Now, when I got in at 2:15, my start time's 4 a.m. So now I can go sleep for an hour, or I can walk across the bivouac, and the bivouacs are like over 1 kilometer, they're massive.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So I can walk all the way down to the other side, go write out an incident report form, pay my bucks, all that sort of stuff, or I can sleep an hour and try to finish Dakar.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? You know, by that point, I was like, I'm here to finish Dakar.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I went and slept for an hour, I got on the start line, and I raced the next day. And that next day, I mean, I had like lots and lots of time to think.
Sure.
And I thought about all of this, and I thought, you know what? That oak in the car has just done me the biggest favor of my life. Because I've got this story about being paralyzed and trying to get to Dakar.
Yeah.
And then on the second last day, to get hit by a car, to find a bike in the desert, to ride through the night, to finish this race, you couldn't ask for a better finish, you know, to the story. And so I was like that day, I thought, you know what? You know, it is what it is. And so, honest, I've never found out who the driver is. I never reported to the marshals. I never found out who it is. I've got it all on video and the photos and stuff, as you see. But I honestly do not know who the rider is.
Shit.
And so,
that
the driver, sorry, yeah.
obviously was the catalyst that spurred you on to do this.
There we go. That's it.
So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get this into an hour show?
Yeah, that's it.
An hour show, but we've only got 10 minutes to do it. All right. Share with the people what we're going to do.
So we have got Joey's book, and it is going to be signed by Joey. And we are going to offer this up as a prize. And I love the name, From Para to Dakar. That is.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
very
that's
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. So the book is up for grabs for somebody who, and it's with a question.
We'll discuss it just now.
Yeah.
We'll discuss it just now. We'll ask Jay to come up with a question just now.
Cool.
Okay. But we have to move on, Jay. Unfortunately, we've run out of
100%.
time. So we'll definitely get you back for the rest of the story.
Anytime,
okay?
man. Oh, there's stories on stories.
Yes.
But yeah.
And there might be a little Footpeg Diary possibility coming up as well.
Oh, you like shut.
Yeah.
Let's go ride next time. Yeah.
Okay. So fitting to our theme tonight, we did something completely different. We review cars. It's a car show. So
And
we
bikes.
have to, and bikes. So we review stuff. But this time around, we went out to Terence Marsh, who you know
Oh,
very
man,
well.
what a boykie.
Yeah.
And we went to go and review the new Red-Lined REVO.
Oh, brilliant.
How's about that?
Oh, that is
So
freaking
unfortunately,
lucky, man.
this is one of those very cool reviews. Unfortunately, it's too long to show in this, in the show tonight, again, like everything tonight. So we'll show you the first 10 minutes, but you can go onto YouTube and Facebook later, well, tomorrow, and you can watch the rest of that. So here's the first 10 minutes of the REVO review.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of Let's Talk Automotive, and we have a very, very special guest in the form of Terence Marsh from Red-Lined Motorsport. Welcome, Terence.
Thanks, Pete. Thank you, man.
As you will see, we have Kyalami as our backdrop behind here, and there's a very specific reason why we're at Kyalami, and that is because Terence is going to take us through an amazing supercar. It's a normally aspirated V8 5-litre 6.5 million rand supercar, and I cannot wait to show you guys the supercar that we are talking about. So Terence is going to take us through a little bit of a walk around, and here it is. It's the REVO that you guys designed and built right here in South Africa.
Yeah, it's our latest specification of what we call the T1. You know, T1 is the Dakar specification and built purposely for the World Cup, the FIA World Cup in Dakar. So it's our latest. It's our newest that we're about to release. You're the first guys to see it. It'll debut next week in its first national. So here it is.
It looks absolutely gorgeous, and there are some unique lines. You were telling me a little bit earlier about some of the design philosophies that you had from an aerodynamic point of view, and then some of the practicalities. Maybe you can take us through some of those.
Pete, the big thing for us is that we don't have an alignment with any particular manufacturer, so it allowed us a blank piece of paper.
Yeah.
So what we really thought about it not having to be a traditional truck or in South Africa a bakkie, we could really design what we wanted to design. So aerodynamically, what could be the best? You could really never work with aerodynamics before with the bakkie truck.
Sure.
Yeah, we could. So we spent a lot of money and a lot of time just on getting the aerodynamics right, and not only the aerodynamics to ensure that for the driver and navigator, after 10 Dakar experiences, we're very clear how visibility is very key. So how do we maximize visibility for both driver and navigator, particularly in the dunes when they've got to really have a look at a really fine cut line when driving up or down.
So cut line, just describe that for the novices and us. The cut line is where there's a drop off and you don't want to go over there.
It's very much what they call the slip face. So if you think of a dune, in the dunes you're really being asked to drive off a cliff and not really knowing what's on the other side. So, if you go 106%, you can cartwheel the car.
Yes.
If you go 99%, you get stuck on the top of the dune. So, actually identifying that slip face is critical. So, visibility is everything. So, visibility in mind, and obviously aerodynamics. Aerodynamics only comes play at obviously higher speeds, but having a blank canvas allowed us to engage.
Okay, so there's some unique angles over here. Maybe you can take us through the windscreen and then some of these angles that we see, and then the side of the vehicle as well. There were some special things that you spoke about.
As I said, for Dakar and particularly the dunes and the technical things, visibility is everything. So for driver and navigator, maximize that he's got 100% exposure of his windscreen, be it from the VA pillars. Everything he's available for him to see can be seen. And then once he has visibility out there, angles like from here when identifying those slip faces, obviously angles running off here and here. So it's optimizing visibility at the same time adding aerodynamics. So I would find it difficult to think that there's a more aerodynamic 4x4 in the T1 class at the moment.
Awesome. And you forget that the bakkies do come out a lot, and that does take away a lot of
you can think of
the air of parallax. Awesome. All right, so moving along, we've got some other areas over here that clearly have had a lot of work done. Maybe you're going to show us on the other side where the spare wheels are actually situated.
So if you think of the traditional one, the spare wheels always sat at the back. Again, with the new regulations, we had the ability to move things around. So the car takes 3 spare wheels. It's 2 on either side of the car and then 1 underneath.
So nice and tucked away, so again, not getting involved in...
All the weight between the wheels and as low as possible is really where the dynamics or the car comes into play.
Yes.
So when you're looking for performance, if you think of a go-kart, how do we get everything in between the wheels and low as possible?
That's superb. I mean, you can see here, this is where the 3 spare wheels would normally have been. And then also the radiator, you're explaining how the radiator is now you've been able to move the radiator from very high up to nice and low down.
So in previous generation cars, the first thing is you move the radiator away from the front to the rear, and the reason you're doing that is that you're not hitting into rocks or branches or trees or into the dunes, and a leaking radiator it's race over. So effectively we moved them to back in all the previous generation ones, but to get the center of gravity even lower, we really brought this one down. And in order to get it as low as we want, we had to go smaller. In order to get smaller, we had capacity issues. So what we did is we ended up putting in a dual radiator system. So you actually have a second radiator system in the front, which gives you a contingency plan, but obviously gives you optimal cooling. So all the cars that we designed, this is optimal cooling. So if we were to end up in South America again, or one of these really hot climates, this is the optimal system to run.
Unbelievable. Now, another thing I noticed over here is this is a very different setup in terms of the rear suspension and no solid rear diff.
Yeah, so
no solid rear axle, sorry.
Yeah, in the previous generations, it was a solid axle, a real good old South African bakkie. And they're very strong. I mean, a solid axle car is extremely strong, reliable, easy to maintain car. But if you want to optimize traction, then you've got to go independent rear, because the traction levels are just just that much better.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, you have to compensate with, you get less travel. So less travel for independent versus more travel for solid axle.
Okay, so that's just one of the ways that they try and equalize the cars in terms of the technology that's being used.
That fancy word of BOP, balance of performance. How do they equalize suspension? How do they equalize engines? So you've got weight. In the turbos, you've got boost, and then you've got weight, and you've got to restrict the size of the amount of air. So that's how they do it in suspension.
And the feedback from the guys that have driven this compared to your other T1s, what are the differences
Remembering
that they're
that
finding?
It's only 1 month old, this car.
Yeah.
It hasn't come out to race yet. We've only tested, and we've probably done about 800 kilometers of testing.
Okay.
So at this stage, very impressive. I mean, we're obviously really excited about it, but in all due respect, it hasn't raced in conditions.
Fair enough,
So we've had a lot of, let's say, 30-minute, 1-hour sessions.
Yeah.
And when we look at all the data and we overlay the data onto our existing cars, it definitely provides more traction, it brakes better, it accelerates better, it handles the roughness better. So overall, the car is definitely quicker. We are still refining power and performance in the car because we have exhaust that's open to us and intakes. So the car not being mature, there's still margin for us. We're close on where we think the specification should be. So we know when we start getting to 90% of optimizing, we're close. I think from 95 to 100, we don't have the budget. We're not a factory team, so we don't have the resources or the budget. So if we can get to 95% of optimizing performance with our reliability in mind, then we're happy. So we're not far off, but I think next week will be the first time to see, well, what does it do after 3 hours, after 4 hours?
Yeah.
What is this car how's it going to do?
Okay, so Terence, last question before I ask you to take me for a test drive, because we can't have a review and we can't rate this car from 1 to 10 if we haven't test driven it. But just in terms of bodywork, what are the fundamental materials that you've used for the bodywork?
So the bodywork is all carbon composite.
Okay.
Obviously inside is all a mixture of carbon fiber and carbon Kevlar, but the body mostly is composite. That's where we're going to get the lightness as well as the strength.
Because I cannot stress how thin this is, but yet it feels very strong and rigid. It's amazing. I was also looking at some of the angles that you guys have achieved, which is why I realized that couldn't possibly have been made out of fiberglass, for example.
I think, as you mentioned before, I mean, the focus is it's an off-road supercar. That's what it is. It's an off-road supercar. It's purpose-built using the best componentry in the world with what we believe some of the best design work. And look, we're really proud of it.
As you should be. This looks incredible. Okay, Terence.
Let's do it.
Let's go do it. So first of all, first things first, this aircon system is incredible. I think it could probably cool
the best you've seen.
So there's a 10 out of 10 on the cooling.
But you think about it, the reality being is that the guys are going to spend 8 to 10 hours in the cockpit. In this Kalahari rally now, one day was 13 hours, one day was 12 hours. So you've got to optimize the performance of these guys.
And that's true. We always talk about the automatic air conditioning systems on cars. The reason why they are a safety device is because, first of all, there's consistency in the temperature. So if your body is changing temperature all the time, it fatigues quicker.
All right, so obviously we leave the best till last on that, and Terence takes me for a hair-raising ride around.
That wasn't that bad, just because you're old, man. It's because you're old that you're scared. That's what happened.
So that's something to look forward to, but it was, I must say,
for sure,
really, really incredible.
Okay, so let's wrap it up quickly, Joe, before we get to game time. We had a couple of people that Christelle Clark actually wanted to know, and there was another question. Let me just see quickly who it was.
Miranda.
Was it Miranda?
Yeah.
That asked if you would go back to Dakar.
Oh man, I get asked that quite a lot, but obviously you look at it, you go like, to go back, what would be better? You know what I mean? Why would be the purpose of going back? Because you need a very big why to be on that start line, because that's what's going to take you through those rough times, those like risking your life, risking your physical stuff, those injuries, all sorts of stuff, to justify the money spent, all that sort of stuff. And I don't have a why to go back and do it again, to be honest, and it was a fantastic experience in my life, and turn the page for me. I must say, I'm 46 now, I'm getting on.
What do you mean you're spring chicken, man?
You look like 35.
No, really, I am.
it when the guests catch on. Eh?
On the ball. But it's one of those things where I'm like, I've got full of titanium. I've had all sorts of injuries, and I'm trying to get this body to last me for many years. So what I want to do now is I want to ride with mates. I want to ride adventure bikes. I want to ride off-road bikes. I want to ride enduro bikes. I want to ride in every country of the world. I want to have rich experiences. Yeah. But when you race, money goes up a lot in terms of expenses, and risk goes up a lot. Yeah, sure. And I want to have a lot more experiences with a lot less crashing.
I love it, because I think far too many people wouldn't necessarily have the emotional intelligence to say, I've done that.
Yeah. It's not often someone refers to me in intelligence in the same sentence, but I'll take it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So
cool.
Can we make a date, like in maybe next season, we'll get you back and we'll do the rest of the story?
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, there's lots of stories, man. And hopefully we'll have some more stories by then.
Awesome. Appreciate it. So the last thing that I want to touch on quickly was, you said that you're a motivated kind of guy, and you had a very big support team around you, etc., etc. So the fact that you've now become sort of a motivational speaker yourself, and you do a lot of public speaking and that sort of stuff, is this your way of giving back, or is it just the way it's always been?
No, not at all. I hate public speaking. I've always hated it.
I've got a picture that there's like thousands of people standing in front of you.
No, for sure. And it's been something that I've to be honest, I've had to learn to do, And so at first, man, it was hugely intimidating. The way it kind of played out was I got back from Dakar, and a bunch of KTM dealers were like, hey man, would you come and tell the story? And I was like, yeah, sure, And so I went out, told the story to the guys, and it was cool to be able to share the experiences. And then there was a couple of guys in the audience like, hey man, I need you to come and do this at my company. And suddenly, I don't come from a corporate background. I didn't know there was such a thing as keynote speaking at conferences and this kind of stuff. And so I had to, I kind of did a couple of crash and burns, and then I started to get the hang of it. And then I joined the Public Speakers Association of South Africa, and I decided, you know what, Joey, freaking learn the skills, man. Yeah. And so I started to learn about it, learn, how to deliver, a presentation, how to give them good takeaways, how to have a proper presentation and how it flows and that sort of stuff. Cool. And it's been a journey for the last 4 years, and it's been cool because it's taken me to all over the world. I've spoken in Australia, Poland, Lebanon, Pakistan, Kenya, Tanzania, Germany, all sorts of cool places, And so now I love it, and it's the way I earn my money. But it's also, I do a lot of stuff as well where, for guys, like I'll do talks for people, for instance, that are injured, or people struggling with that type of stuff. And it's great to be able to give guys renewed hope.
Well, listen, I think that you are talking yourself down a little bit in terms of the public speaking. I think the natural champion in you rose to the top, as cream always floats to the top. No matter how much you shake the milk. So it doesn't surprise us that you're doing what you're doing. You've been motivational to us. We can't wait to get you back on again, so we can carry on with the talk on the road to Dakar. But I think it's now time for me to be humiliated.
It's time for you to be another champ. That's
here we go.
So ladies and gentlemen, this is game time. So very easy tonight. We're going to show you a partial picture of a bike tonight. Okay. A little bit of a Dakar Enduro theme. So if you recognize the bike, just shout your name. I'll come to you and you give me the answer. Best out of 7 wins. Okay.
Oh, we're competing?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, well, I hope they're new bikes. If they're older bikes, he'll know them a lot better.
No. I love riding my bike, but the only bike I know is my bike.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I'm not one of these guys that knows all these models and stuff.
Can I tell you something funny?
Yeah.
So you heard what he just said. That's the only bike he knows. So I took a picture of his bike and I put it on Game Time once, and he didn't recognize it.
Good story.
Okay, you guys at home can actually also play along. So if you recognize the bike,
they're obviously all KTMs.
No. Let's see if you know your bikes. All right. Okay. You guys ready to go? Yeah. You guys at home ready to go? I want to see answers. Here's the first one.
Okay, that's
yes, Joey, I'll come to you.
I got it.
What's this?
Yeah, can I go for it?
Yeah,
okay. Well, I can tell you it looks to me like an old Dakar bike, and it looks like it's a BMW. You can see at the end of that O of the Marlboro, you can see the BMW colours there. So
well done, absolutely. So that's the BMW R80 GS Dakar.
There you go.
Hey, isn't that lovely?
That is a cool bike.
Actually, there's a guy on Facebook that I follow that just restored a red one and a blue one like that.
Very cool.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Very, very cool.
Okay, so it's 1-0 to Joey at the moment. Here we go, guys. Here's the second one.
Peter.
Oh, there's no way.
That's got to be a Honda.
Okay, but I'm going to be very strict with you. Tell me which model it is.
Oh, come on.
Well, I can tell you it's a Dakar one, and I'll tell you why. You can see.
Yeah.
You check at the bottom there, that little box at the
Yes,
front.
yes.
But if you also look at the side facing us, now I don't know for sure, but that to me looks like a water tank. And what happened is at Dakar, you have to have 3 liters of water on the bike, and they normally keep it in the bash plate. And it's for drinking water. And so that little white box on the bottom right of your screen, that to me looks like a water. I might be wrong on this, but chances are that's a water box. Yeah. And so that could well be well, that's probably the Dakar model they use. I don't know what the names are.
But it's a 750.
Oh, well done. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Peter, I'm going to give you half a point so far. Okay.
I got the Honda. Well done.
So this is the NXR 750.
Okay.
This was actually the prototype for the XRV 750 that came later, the Honda Africa Twin.
Jeez, man, that's a whole lot of letters you got right there.
Can
buddy.
you believe that? And nowadays we get the CRF 1000 Africa Twins and all that sort of stuff. That's where it started, the dream.
Oh man, those original Africa Twins are super. I mean, they're all really nice bikes. So yeah, they are.
Okay, so it's 1-1/2 at this point. And here's the third one. Just the manufacturer, Jay.
Oh, yeah, blue. It's got to be a Yamaha.
Absolutely.
It's on the screen.
Where are you checking? What?
I'm looking at the...
It's literally written on the bike.
It's right there.
I kid you not. I'm looking at the top word going, what on earth is it saying? Sonato, whatever.
Yeah, we're real pros. You can't even read. I guess most bikers can't read, so that's probably about it.
I am going to the optometrist tomorrow. That's a true story.
William's got the BMW right. Nadia's got the Africa Twin right. Let's see if anybody on YouTube's playing along. Oh, they're not playing along. Okay, so it is 2-1 at this point in time. Joey, now that is the Yamaha, the YZE 750. So back in the day, they were all 750s. Nowadays, what are you guys doing? The 450s?
450 is the limit nowadays. Yeah. So yeah, and they go up to about 180 k's an hour. But the race has become obviously a lot more technical.
Yeah.
Like the early Dakars, they were on dirt tracks. Obviously, it was times in the dunes, but nowadays they'll send you in the riverbeds and really make it gnarly. And so. The bikes have got smaller, which is better, but I mean, you still can do 180 k's. And if you do 180 k's off-road, it's silly.
Sure.
Okay, so here's number 4. Joey, now you must be awake. You've got the shirt.
Peter! Okay, cool. I know what it is as well.
Yeah, that's
the best one so far.
Oh, it's a KTM. Come on.
No.
What is it?
Yeah.
It's
KTM. Well, you can see a bit of orange.
450.
450. I think that's the 990.
Absolutely.
There we go. It's the LC8 engine.
Yeah.
There you go.
Look at that. Wow, beautiful.
Listen, those bikes, we spoke before the show, we just got back from a trip in the Kalahari, and there was a 950 and 3 990s.
Very nice.
They are going
they're
bombs,
incredible.
Eh?
It's one of those bikes that's held its value so much, and nowadays they're pretty sought after.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys who are like sort of the purest adventure riders from those days are like, that was the bike.
Yeah.
But I mean, now you're getting these 890s coming out. 890R is a super cool bike, man. I rode one of those for a while.
We had one of those on the trip.
So I just want to say,
cool bike.
William, I feel you, brother. William SA, he says KTM something.
It's good.
It's going according to plan here, so it's 3-1/2, Joey's favour. Here's number 5.
Husqvarna.
Yes, absolutely correct. That's another point for you. This is now the newer stuff, okay? So this is the FC450.
Yep.
Husqvarna.
Yeah, that's the rally bike. Sorry, that's it, Geez, that's the new one,
Nice,
you can see because it's got the 3 petrol tanks, so you'll see there's 2 at the front and 1 at the back as well.
What is the fuel capacity with the 3 tanks?
I don't know on that particular one, but I think it's about 32 or something like that. My bike was 33 litres.
In total?
Yeah, in total. So it's 19, 7 and 7. So 7 front right, 7 front left, 19 under.
And what range does it give you?
450 kilometers, something like that.
Okay.
Sure.
Because Terrence's car, believe it or not, that T1, that Revo, has got an 800-litre tank in it.
No,
That's insane.
it's incredible.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so it is 4 to half a point, and number 6.
Is he playing?
Yeah, he's not.
Is he also? Oh, is he trying?
Yeah,
I
he's
didn't realize.
trying,
Okay, gotcha. Sorry, my bad.
Here's
Sorry.
number 6.
I know. Can I shout?
Yeah, please.
I'm trying to.
Tell him. He's trying to get you.
It's a Sherco. You can see the colours. So the blue and the yellow. That's
It's a
Sherco.
what?
Sherco. He doesn't even know.
No, Sherco. You got, I think isn't I think Wade Young's sponsored by Sherco. If
I'm not allowed to swear. That's so Sherco.
Well done. It's the Sherco.
I genuinely have never heard of that.
Never heard of Sherco. They make incredible enduro bikes and that kind of stuff. They don't have a big showing at Dakar.
Is it independent or is it owned by somebody?
No, Sherco is the brand.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's
They're a
not
brand
like
that-
Husqvarna that's owned by KTM.
Yeah.
No, well, Husqvarna, it's not owned by KTM. It's owned by the same company that owns KTM, if that makes sense. But
It's a bit like Ferrari and Fiat.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
What are those? Oh,
They're
cars.
four-wheel
Sorry, I
drive.
don't know much about those. Yeah.
Okay,
But Husqvarna and KTM are steering further and further and further away.
Okay.
Because they want to very much make their own stuff. And I mean, Husqvarna's got some. I mean, you've seen the new Norden come out. They got some really cool bikes and stuff. And obviously, KTM's going more aggressive. The R890Rs, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's cool brands, both of them.
Okay, so the last one, it is now.
Is this the tiebreaker?
5. So this is 5 to half at this point. Okay, so maybe we should make it. This last one will give you 4.5 points.
Yo, 4.5.
Yes.
If I get it. I mean, you're assuming
Okay,
that.
so I'm only. That's what we're gonna do. So you can only tie this to save some face, or you can lose it horribly, which is gonna happen right now. Here's number 7.
Goodness, I don't know. What is it?
Joey, what's that?
Yeah, it looks like it could be an Aprilia. Not. Okay.
No.
Did I make it too difficult? Oh my goodness.
I don't know what that is.
Is there anything on there? Well, I mean, what's
obviously-
red? Who's red? Is it? It's not a gas, is it?
It's a hero.
Yes!
Well
done.
There you go. A little drag there. Thanks, bud.
It's a flippin' cool looking bike, I must say.
That is cool. Yeah.
Okay, well done. It's a whitewash.
Again.
Like always. Thank you so much, Jay.
I'm just glad we didn't go onto cars because then I would have been done.
Jay, thank you so much for joining us. It was a flippin'
Thank
honor
you,
to
Alex.
have
It's
you
been
on
very
the show.
lekker. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, let's move on to how things work. Tonight we're talking, it's a very bikey theme tonight, very weird. Yeah. But we're talking about grip and how it's generated on bike tires, and this is proudly brought to you by Suzuki Auto South Africa.
Welcome to Let's Talk Automotive and our second installment on how tire grip works. Now, last week we spoke about car tires, and today we'll look at how motorbike tires get their grip, and I think this will blow your mind. Now, first off, there are some, shall we say, incorrect statements out there about what creates grip on a bike tire, which I'm going to address now. So 2 popular misconceptions are that the surface area of the contact patch has no effect on grip, and that the more weight we apply, the greater the grip we get. Both these statements are based on Hamilton's first and second law of friction, and of course entirely correct if we are talking about friction, but as we discussed last week, there is a difference between friction and traction, and this means Hamilton's laws are only partially applicable and that there are other significant factors that influence our bike tire's grip. So let's kick off by highlighting that the grip generated by rubber is simply not the same as simple friction, because rubber generates friction in 3 basic ways. Firstly, with adhesion, which is when there is a molecular interaction between the rubber and the tarmac surface. And that is why the greater the surface area, the more adhesion, in other words, grip, is available. Now, on a molecular scale, both the surface of the tire and the surface of the tarmac are extremely rough. And it's the interlocking of these rough patches that creates grip, which increases as we add more load. And we can demonstrate that with these 2 business cards, which I've corrugated. So here you can see this is the rough surface of the tire, and this is the rough surface of the tarmac, and these 2 interlock, which creates that mechanical grip. And we can also see that as we add more load, more interlocking takes place.
Although there is a diminishing return, though, for this added load, as eventually these rough patches bottom out, which stops any further increase in traction. So there's our diminishing returns in terms of the load that we add to our tires. And secondly, we have deformation, which is also called mechanical keying. Now this occurs when lateral and vertical loads deform the tire and cause sharp edges in the tarmac to penetrate into the tire, which then cause the rubber and tarmac to key together, which generates more grip. And the third way a tire develops grip is, believe it or not, through wear. When loads are applied to the tire, the resulting forces cause the rubber to tear. And we've all seen the marbles that result from this tearing on the side of the track. Now, tearing absorbs energy, which means that the absorbed energy is no longer being applied to the tire, which frees it up to provide more grip. Now, so far we've concentrated on the compound of the tire, but what makes a bike tire different to a car tire is its shape and how it deforms due to lean angle. And at this point, I want to revisit a claim made that the size of the contact area has no influence on tire grip, which would mean the size of our tires make no difference. Now, while this is clearly not the case, what is interesting is that the contact area produced is more or less the same for both narrow and wider bike tires. So how is it that wider tires produce more grip? Well, the secret lies in the shape of the contact patch, which changes according to the loads of the tire and the lean angle that we apply. So the greater the lean angle, the larger the contact area becomes, and is aided by the patch flattening and deforming under load. Amazingly, in order for a bike to turn, there is a serious amount of slip angle that is created. And this is due to the difference in the bend radius between the tire and where we're trying to turn, and the cone radius of the tire that is created by the lean angle of the tire. At different lean angles, the tire wants to turn at a tighter radius relative to the radius of the turn or the bend. And this is referred to as camber thrust. And it means the tire is literally sliding through a turn, and the greater the lean angle, the more the tire slides. So at 45 degrees, for example, the lean angle of a bike tire will experience about 6 degrees of slip to maintain a balanced turn and lean angle, which is why when you see the super slow-mos of MotoGP bikes, it looks like they are drifting through the corner, but actually it's the tire experiencing that 6 degrees of slip angle. There is so much more to how a bike tire generates grip, and I've really only scratched the surface here. And as with car tires, we have different tread patterns to cater for different operating conditions, each with their own unique ways of generating grip. But I hope that you get the idea of how bike tires generate grip and how it's different compared to car tires. I know I'm certainly amazed at how complex bike tire grip is, and I'm sure you are too. And so that's it for today's episode on how things work, and we look forward to catching up with you on next week's episode of Let's Talk Automotive.
Thank you so much, Prof. Peter, for telling us how, and I wish that you would have shown that to me on Monday, because I obviously don't understand traction.
No matter how much traction you have on your bike tires, it can't account for stupidity.
That's true. And it's not so much being stupid, it was a bit being windgat. You know the difference about windgat and stupid.
Found a bit of traction on your forearm.
Yes, braking force. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of the show.
Whoa, wait.
What is this? What is this now? Yeah, Pete. Sorry, my butterfingers. Oh, you're making up some names. That's what she said. Yes.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, so we've got some funnies for you. Like we always want to end the show with a little bit of humor. So this is fun time. Don't let me go without asking the question, okay?
Yeah.
Because we've got this. Oh, sorry. So come back to this quickly before we do that. We've got this. We have to remember to ask the question, okay?
Yes.
So have you seen this meme before?
No, not that meme.
No, that's not a meme. When your friend rides your bike, have you ever experienced that? Hey?
My friends have experienced that, yes.
I think that's more accurate.
And you want me to go on a track with your bike?
No, but that's a track bike, so what?
Okay.
You know?
Okay, so you're not going to look like that?
No.
All right, let's check the next one. When you fly past a cop and know he's coming, let me grab this plate. Won't be needing that. Another true story.
So if you had one in the first place.
Shouldn't have been there in the first place.
He's clearly not South African if he's still got a number plate on his bike.
And here's the last one.
Oh,
So we've been speaking about electric vehicles a lot, so I thought I must throw this in there. That's a hybrid motorcycle.
just don't show that to Elon Musk, because I'm telling you now, Elon Musk will do something with that.
Okay, that was a good laugh. Okay, so Peter, what's the question to win this autograph book? Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. Right. What does it say? Ride Through the Night. Signed by Jay. Okay, so to win this book, what do they need to do?
So we need to know what Joey's race number was in Dakar.
In Dakar 2017.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Well, you got to look it up.
I can actually see the number on
You
here.
can almost see it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if you want to win that book, you need to comment in the comment below this video, either on YouTube, and we'll pick somebody during the week. And
Oh,
then,
look what Fritz is doing.
Oh, Fritz, what was that?
Yo.
What was that? What was that? Okay, cool.
He's trying to get me. I'm like, what's he doing? I go, no, with you, sorry.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. Joey, thank you so much for being
Thank you,
here.
guys.
What
It's
an
been lekker.
absolute pleasure.
Very lekker.
We'll see you guys again next week. Same time, same place. Have a good one.
Cheers,
Oh,
everyone.
cheers.